Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. So, if you're listening, welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, definitely like and subscribe to this channel. I'm so excited to have a great friend of mine. Her name is Mercedes Thomas. She is a nurse practitioner and has a lot of expertise and a fellow coworker back in the day. Back in the day. So,
Mm-hmm.
I am going to read her bio and I'm going to read her whole bio because she has a lot of experience as a boss mom, as a mom of a toddler boy that's very active, and as a married woman. So I think this is a great podcast for young mothers and just for mothers in general. So Mercedes Thomas is master's degree, APRN. I'm not going to say the whole acronym for it. CPNP, IB, CLC. So that's lactation. That's what I know. And also known as Mercedes, the nurse practitioner. So Mercedes, the NP, and is a healthcare consultant, writer, pediatric nurse practitioner, and certified lactation consultant. She's also the author of the best-selling book, What in the Baby, and that is coming out April 30th of this month. So I'm excited because she's launching. She's done her pre-book launch, and she became the best-selling author. So she's a best-selling author now. Yay!
Yay! Woohoo!
So she is. Uh, okay. So this book is based off of the Modern Mama Guide to Confidently Caring for Your Baby and Surviving the Postpartum Period, which I think is great. And so these are all for the expectant mothers and those are thinking about being a mother. Is a new book and being one of the top bestsellers so far. Definitely recommend you to get this book. So she has over 12 years experience of working in both the NICU and the pediatrics. And her mission is to combine her nursing expertise with her experiences as a mom to provide evidence-based education to families and reduce the maternal child health disparities. And I know this week is the Black Maternal Week or something like that. I did
Yep.
note
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep.
So
Yes.
this is great for this topic. So welcome, Mercedes, to my podcast, and I'm so excited. So I know it's been busy, and as a mom of a toddler, and also being a boss mom, working from home and working with companies and everything. So tell me how you think self-care is for you. Like, how are you able to maintain a balance as a mom?
Absolutely. So, first, self-care, I think we can define that on different terms, right? It's becoming like a big buzz term over the past couple of years, especially with COVID. People are trying to find this self-care. And, self-care looked a lot differently before I was a mom. Self-care even looked a lot differently before I had a toddler. So, my son is sometimes like three kids in one. And, it's just my husband and I. So we live in the
Mhm.
DMV area. We're in the Washington, D.C. area. We don't have family in the area. We do have friends and some good friends. But again, it's COVID, right? So
Mhm.
everybody's kind of in their little bubble still. And so it makes it a little bit challenging to kind of do the things that we used to do
Yeah.
pre-COVID, even to get that normalcy back. But we're doing our best. So what we do is we take kind of like not shifts because we're full-time parents. I know I'm
Mhm.
24/7,
Yeah.
definitely, but we take shifts. So if there's something that I need to do, my husband just started a position this fall, and I won't say a whole lot about it right now,
Mhm.
but it's going to mean some major changes for our family. Really good changes, but it
Yeah.
also means that I have to kind of, let him do his thing as well, because he's got a lot going on at work, learning a new language, those kinds of things. So, self care for me, I'll give you an example. Last week, I was able to get out of the house for an extended period of time, which probably it doesn't hardly ever happen. So, we kind of sneak little periods of time, but to get out of the house and know what I
Mhm.
did? I
What'd you do?
watched hair videos on YouTube and ate my Thai food in the car. Okay.
That's the
That was
best
my
thing.
self care. Quiet, brainless activity. It didn't
Mhm.
have anything to do with my business. It didn't have anything to do with being a mom. It was just
Mhm.
like, I want to watch this hair video
4
and sit
minutes.
here. And it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
So I was able to get out and just sit and do nothing and go cruise a home. It's called the At Home store. which
Mhm.
I don't know if they have one in
Yes, yes.
Phoenix. But I'm
Yeah,
like,
there
why
is.
didn't somebody tell me what's in
I
that
know,
store?
it's so tempting,
Um,
isn't it?
yeah, their marketing is fantastic because it came to me a flyer in the mail, and so I had seen the store before other
Mhm.
places, but I never thought to go in there. And as a child, I hated the home stores. Like I just dreaded it. And so it was funny, me as a mom now, right? three
As an
years in,
adult.
and an adult married woman, like my solace was watching some hair YouTube videos
Mm.
about natural hair, listening to some music, eating Thai food, which there's a fantastic place near my house. And I just covered, I had my little paper towel so I didn't get my
Mhm.
shirt all messed up. Because Thai food, it's like it drips a little bit.
Yes, but so good.
So yeah, so I went into the home store and browsed. And so I was out for it. So that was self-care for me, just literally mindless activity. Because what happens a lot is you find, okay, I'm a mom,
Mhm,
I'm a business owner, and
mhm.
I'm a wife, right? So sometimes when I have that off time, the off time has to go to the business to keep
Yeah.
it going. Even if it's something that I've created to be flexible so that I can be a full time mom and be
Mhm.
more attentive and be available to my family. But I still have to keep it going in
Yeah.
many respects. And it's
Mhm.
just me. You're a solopreneur. So I'm excited this summer that I'm going to be able to finally look into getting some help, which will
Yeah.
be good,
Yeah.
and kind of outsourcing some tasks. But right now it's just me.
Just you.
So,
Yeah.
you have to find that fine balance of figuring out when it's going to be about you
Mhm.
only. And so
Yes.
that's what I've really delved into. How do I find the balance of, okay, this is time for the business, this is
Mhm.
time for being a mother and a wife, but where's that time for me? And I don't mean self care as being just taking a shower. Like
Mhm.
those are your
Yeah,
basic daily
basic.
needs that
Yeah,
you
daily needs.
need
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
should get. So, what does that mean for you having the mindless activity? Is it watching Netflix? Some days when I've had a really challenging day at work, which
Mhm.
I'm actually now a full time entrepreneur. So I have to update
Yeah,
you.
okay. Well,
But when I
congratulations.
had
Yay.
really challenging times at work, sitting down and watching like Nigerian chick flicks or something,
Those
like
quick.
those cheer me up. It might be a little cheesy, but it cheered me up,
Those are
So
interesting. Yeah, the
yeah,
plots are
so
really interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
just catching a movie. I don't get to do it often, but there's
Yeah.
several times where you just have that mindless resting activity. Is it
Mhm.
listening to music?
Yeah.
Is it just taking a quick nap? Sometimes
Mhm.
just a refresher nap, or I
Mhm.
call it a cat nap,
That nap.
as
Yeah.
my mom would say.
Mhm.
What can you do? Is it going into your closet? I know you have your closet and you go
Mhm.
in there and have prayer.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out what it looks like for you where it's just your time. So it's no one else's time. It doesn't matter if it's 15 minutes taking a
Yeah.
walk around the block. You
Mhm.
figure that out and what works for you. So that's how
Yeah.
I found that figuring out what works for Mercedes, not what's
Yes.
going on with the
Yes.
business, not what's going on with being a mom, because that's 24/7.
Mhm.
So what self care is what that time looks like for you giving yourself your time.
That's so true. And with self care, for you being a young mom, so you still have a young, that's a
Mm-hmm.
3-year-old at home. So I feel that pain when I was in that position, finding that balance.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was working nights. So I chose to work night shift as a nurse. That's we're both nurses. So I chose to work nights so I can find that
Mm-hmm.
balance. I was trying to find a balance with my kids so I won't feel like I'm being left out. And I think I put too much pressure on myself because I was trying to do everything and be the super
Mm-hmm.
mom. And I've learned that we cannot be super mom. We can be
Mm-hmm.
what we can for ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
now, after all these years, and my boys are now teenagers, and I have a 5-year-old, I'm still trying to find a balance sometimes. So one thing
Mm-hmm.
that I've done, and you've heard about it with the miracle mornings, I do get up early, and I try to get up at the same time every morning as much as I can,
Mm-hmm.
and I start my day with me because I know if I don't, and it does happen, and I've noticed that if I don't, my day, even though if it's a busy day, like today was the busiest day probably this week for me, but I started my day off with me by taking a walk. I took an hour-long
Mm-hmm.
walk. I was listening to my podcast just to get my mind clear. I was praying, I was walking, just that clarity, just to clear my
Mm-hmm.
mind. And also, it's a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual journey for yourself. So if you're doing that self care, as you said, you're going to have something inside your car. That's your own spiritual journey to just clear your mind and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
also to enjoy something that you love to do. And
Yes.
I know most people say that self-care is not really, stepping out, going grocery shopping or doing this, but right now, especially for new moms, if you have that chance to at least take that walk out to the store that's nearby and even to
Hmm.
just get away
Hmm.
from your kids, that's self-care for you. So don't be
Oh
hard on
yeah.
yourself. Listen to what other people say because we have different levels of our journey. So coming to that with young moms, because I know you're dealing, that's you working with new mothers and
Hmm.
helping them and guiding them, and this book is all pertained to that. So what
Yes.
are some tips and tricks you've been doing with new moms?
So it's funny that you said do what works for you because that was
Mhm.
my first caveat. In working with new moms, expectant parents, I think the number one thing is trying to figure out what worked for everyone else instead of trying to figure out what's going to work for you,
Yep.
your baby, your partner,
Mhm.
your support system, how that's going to work for you. You cannot base what someone else is doing,
Mhm.
even sometimes what you did with another child that you birthed. You can't
Exactly.
always base that. They may have different temperaments. I talk
Mhm.
about that in my book. Some children are very mild mannered. They don't need much but their basic needs, to love them, to
Mhm.
feed them, to make sure that they get their sleep and, play with them. Just
Mhm.
those basic needs that we need to provide to young infants, the loving care. Other children, they have more higher intense needs. So they may need you around the clock.
Yep.
They may be what you call a high needs child.
Yep.
So I think we have to be conscious of that. And I saw today, and it was a little scary. Someone asking about in a mom group asking about sleep training a 21-day old baby. And so I'm kind of like, what is our expectation here?
To get sleep
um,
for the next 20 years.
yeah, it's only been 21 days. Like, just relax a little
Wow.
bit, simmer down. And I know, it's a privilege
Mhm.
for many of us moms in America to get a real maternity leave, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes we're having to go back 6 weeks, eight
Yeah.
weeks. And, your job may not be available to you, depending
Mhm.
on the state that you live in, depending on the type of employer that you work for, depending on your social situation.
Yep.
Maybe you're the sole breadwinner for your family. So we're speaking about that from a place of privilege, but and I don't know her situation, but trying to sleep train a 21-day-old baby, the
Yikes.
baby's less than 1 month. It's
Wow.
just not appropriate because
No.
developmentally babies need to
Be
be
nurtured and
on their nurtured and
yeah.
be on their own schedule. We're nurses, we know the trust versus mistrust,
Mhm.
and those types of child development theories that really ring true
Mhm.
to parents and to new babies, regardless of the type of temperament that your child has. So I think I just caution um, new parents to just kind of settle in
Mhm.
and learn what's normal. Find out what resources are safe. Going into certain mom groups may not be safe. They may be a source of support for you, but you're going to get the gamut of answers from
Yeah.
people on what they should do, what they tried, what worked for them. You're going to get something across the spectrum.
Wow.
So with COVID, I know it's kind of left things a little scary for new parents. They
Mhm.
don't know where to turn. Some of them couldn't get into their doctor's visits. They couldn't bring in someone to help them with
Mhm.
the doctor's visits. So maybe you don't have someone to help you get there. But there are books, there are reputable websites, which I can give you some of those for the short
Mhm.
show notes for people to look at, and just know your resources and try to get prepared before you have your baby
Mhm.
so that you're not completely shell shocked.
Exactly.
Get the basics. But a sleep cycle of a newborn could be anywhere from 30 minutes up to 90 minutes
Yeah.
sometimes. So you may have a baby that falls into that realm of the 30-minute where they're
Mhm.
kind of just taking these smaller sleep cycles.
Mhm.
And then you may have some babies that sleep a little bit longer to make up their 16 to 18 hours per day. So you just have to be really careful about the kind of advice that you intake these days because it's at the fingertips,
Mhm.
but it may not be
Yeah.
the right advice for you.
That's so true.
So yeah, try to figure out what works for you, as opposed to trying to figure out what everyone else did because you'll kind of drive yourself a little bit crazy trying to duplicate what everyone else did.
Exactly. I totally agree. Yeah, that misinformation there and with social media now and
Uh
everything.
huh.
Yeah, pick your battle and choose things that are actually true information, not just because you
Mhm.
Googled it.
Mhm.
Google has been a lot of people's best friend, and we highly don't recommend
Mhm.
to Google stuff. Do not Google because
Mm-mm,
you get
mm-mm,
the
mm-mm,
weirdest
mm-mm.
answers, and if you go by it, it's not always true. And one thing that is so important is to make sure you're asking for help. So if you do have a
Absolutely.
partner that is not available or not there, or you're single and you need help, don't hesitate to ask for help. So it may be trying to seek assistance, finding a nanny, or getting your family or neighbors or somebody. But know that you're not by yourself, because especially with postpartum depression,
Mhm.
that is another thing that can just creep up so quickly. And one thing I've
Absolutely.
told my patients in the past is it can happen from day one to when the baby's even 1 or 2 years old. You never know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Mhm.
definitely,
Mhm.
if you are, and this is just like a medical advice, to definitely seek help if you are in
Absolutely.
that situation. Um, we don't recommend you to just do it by yourself, because I personally, when I had my first two kids, I was fine. I was blessed with so much support because I had my mom, and she was there for every single delivery, and I was spoiled. I'm like, Mom, I'm pregnant. Here's a date. Make sure you're here. And she was there, and she supported me for like several weeks. Made sure food was cooked. Made sure that I was just take care of the baby. That was pretty much it, and pretty much everyone else was taken care of. But for some people, they're not fortunate enough to have that.
Mm-mm.
So definitely reach out if you are part of a like a church or a group of people and you need that support. Definitely seek the support. There are resources out there in
Mhm.
general for those who need help, especially with insurance companies. They have like the Healthy First Step. They have all those health resources for new moms. So definitely seek that help. And I know you have also been a that's an advocate for breastfeeding.
Mhm.
And I just wanted you to talk about that since we're on
Yeah,
this
sure.
topic. So, what are your thoughts about breastfeeding for those who use formula? So, what are your thoughts about that?
So first, before I forget, I'm going to backtrack just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit on the postpartum
Mm-hmm.
depression. Another thing that I find helpful is just tracking your mood,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So one, getting that education, getting the information before you have your baby so that you're aware of what to expect, and letting your partner also know, because they may know you best. If you're a single mom, just letting your support system, letting someone know that they need to check in with you,
Yeah.
and what it looks like if you kind of are getting into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any support system, again, tracking your mood.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did as part of my book is I have actually a whole section on the fourth trimester, which is like the first 12 weeks after you have your baby. We talk a lot about the 3 trimesters when you're pregnant, but there's that fourth trimester where you're really vulnerable, and you really need some extra loving
Yeah.
care, and just to love on yourself sometimes. And loving on yourself is making sure that you check in with you. And so what I did was I created something called a mommy mood tracker.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's part of my book. And you're able to actually access it off of my website as well too. So I'll give Adi the
Yeah.
link, but it's just
Link.
a quick 2-second check-in, a smiley face. So you don't
Yes.
even have
Yeah.
to write anything if you don't want to, but notes are great so that you kind of have a baseline. But if you start to see too many frowning faces or sad faces
Mm-hmm.
in a row, then that means you need to reach out to somebody,
Yes.
including your healthcare provider. Okay, so there's also Postpartum Net. It's the Postpartum Support International. They have a fantastic slew of resources. Even if you feel like you are having scary thoughts
Mm-hmm.
of wanting to harm yourself, wanting to harm your baby, anything that is just out of the ordinary for you, they have free support groups. They have a list of trusted healthcare providers. So really tap into that, and just check your mood. So
Yes.
even if it's just jotting it down in your electronic calendar, happy, sad,
Mm-hmm.
feeling down, couldn't get out of bed. If you start to see a trend of things where your mood, where you're kind of having a difficult time, a struggle, and it starts to be a trend, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be like in trauma or in a destitute position to reach out for help. So don't let it get to that point.
So with breastfeeding, I I actually was able to breastfeed all of my kids, but due to some medical stuff going on with me, I had to stop breastfeeding my second son merely 3 weeks in. That's how bad it was. And I
Wow.
was upset very well. I wasn't really upset, but because he ate a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? God knows that I'll be fine. But for those moms who are working so hard to
Mm-hmm.
pump and breastfeed, and I've seen people who have been so stressed out that they weren't even able to pump enough
Mm-hmm.
breast milk for their baby. So what would you recommend for
Mm-hmm.
them? Would you say formula,
Mm-hmm.
just try to alternate, or what?
So, I mean, I think everyone's situation is different. So I can't just recommend formula.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody's situation is different, right? So I can tell you where to start.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe it will hopefully lessen some of your stressors. And again, it goes back to don't wait to figure things out on day one. Okay, you have hormones raging,
Mm-hmm.
you have a new baby, a new life, a
Yep.
new situation. As you kind of alluded to, you don't know how your body will
Mm-hmm.
react. So you may have, a harder time getting around. You may be a little more stressed. You may have work coming
Yeah.
back up in the next couple of months and trying to figure out how am I going to feed this baby? Who's going to take care of my baby? So I like to backtrack and start around that 30th mark, that 30th week, right? When you're hitting around 30 weeks, trying to figure out what your plan is going to be, right? So we have a birth plan, but the things that sometimes we miss is that postpartum plan.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do after we have the baby? And I like to call it, what are your postpartum wishes, right? Because a plan, as nurses, we kind of say you can plan all day,
Yep.
right? But sometimes a plan may not go exactly the way that you want it to
Mm-hmm.
go. But what are your wishes? What would you like to see
Yeah.
happen? And so if you want to breastfeed, I think at that third trimester is a good time to grab a book,
Mm-hmm.
to get a prenatal postpartum a prenatal breastfeeding course. So sometimes your insurance company may cover
Mm-hmm.
those. So I would call your insurance company, know what your benefits are, and then look into taking a class before. So there's all different types of classes. You can probably get one at your local hospital, your local birthing center. You can go to a private practice lactation consultant. You can do an online class, but whatever you do, um, take some type of class that will kind of teach you the
Mm-hmm.
pitfalls, teach you what to expect, teach you about hand expression. Even as a nurse, I didn't know a lot about hand expression technique
Mm-hmm.
and how to really get the milk. I don't even think the lactation
No, they
consultant
never
that
really
helped me in
did
the
that.
hospital knew. She was like really just like squeezing
Mm-hmm.
hard. And I was like, I don't like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa, lady, back up. So learning, learning those arts of what to
Yeah.
do, right? If you may not be able to pump on day one, even if you're going to be, some women decide that they want to be, or parents decide that they want to be an exclusive pumper.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that you can do. I had a taste of some of it all. I
Mm-hmm.
had to exclusively pump for my son for a while because he had a tongue tie to be able to give him the milk that he needed. So my story was not perfect by any means, but I knew what I wanted before I had him,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I knew what my beginning goal was, and what I wanted my end goal was to at least make it to the first year.
Yeah.
We wound up making it to 2.5 years.
Wow.
That was not in the plan. He was a little harder to wean than I had
Well,
imagined.
it was meant to be,
But
though.
yeah,
It was
so
meant to be.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we had every struggle. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I had to be dairy and soy free with him for an entire year.
Wow.
Talking about cheese, I mean, that's kind of all I ate my pregnancy. It was like, whoa, you need to slow down on the cheese. So I don't know if it was karma coming to get me, but yeah, I had to do that for him to continue to breastfeed him. I went through the struggles at work.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I can talk about it now. My job was horrible to me in some respects. Even as a nurse, there were some people that were really supportive, but at the end of the day, it was about
Mm-hmm.
production and what you were going to do. And at some point, I switched over to a position that I thought would give me a little more flexibility. So not different job, but a little bit of a different position within my
Mm-hmm.
department. And it wound up being a total nightmare.
Wow.
It was not what I thought at all. And you have to make sure that you have an understanding of what the true expectations are
Mm-hmm.
for you, and make sure whoever you are going to be working under has a true
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Because people can say, oh, yeah, you can pump, you can do whatever you need to do, right?
Yeah.
But who's going to do the work while you're
That's
gone?
true.
So you have to think about those things and what is going to work for you functionally, and how to really have those conversations way in advance about what you want to do, what your wishes are, and make those stated. You have laws, okay, too. So if you're having a struggle at work with pumping, or your employer is saying, no, you can't do this, you can go to HR. Like, you don't have to suffer in
Yep.
silence. And again, that's another place of privilege, right? I know we have parents out there and moms out there that are hourly workers, day workers. They may be a contractor, and they may not feel comfortable speaking up to their employer. But at the end of the day, you still have
Yep.
rights. So don't let anybody make you get to a position of where you're saying, I need to pump to go back to work, or I'm trying to feed my baby and now I'm coming up short at the end of the day because I couldn't get the pump break. So I think you have to realize what it is that you want in the beginning and try to work towards that goal. It doesn't have to be perfect, but get some education. Learn about what to expect. Learn how to hand express. Learn about the different types of like pumps that may be good for you. If you're going to be a stay-at-home mom, one pump may work for you. If you're going to be a mom that is only pumps, because that's possible too. You don't have to end breastfeeding if your baby can't latch. You just need some dedication, right? And the right pump. So kind of know what your wishes are, what your situation is, and work from there. And of course, if it's medically necessary, by all means, then you need to feed your baby in the best way that you need to, but you need to discuss that with your healthcare provider. So I can't blanketly say to give your baby formula, because every situation is different. But I would definitely discuss that with their pediatrician or your pediatric nurse practitioner, whomever is taking care of your baby. And make sure that they are reaching those developmental milestones. Make sure they need the proper calories to be able to grow and
Make sure
thrive
you eat
and
too. Don't
become,
starve yourself.
yeah, and
Eat.
get your calories, right? So everybody's like, am I going to breastfeed and lose all the
Don't
weight?
worry about
Just
that.
just take care of your
Yeah.
body, okay? And everything will fall into place. And you will eventually establish some normalcy. But like Adi said, it's about the baby at that point, and about you and your mental health and your safety of your body.
Yes.
So another thing that I like to talk about is the post-birth warning signs. And in the interest of time, I won't go through it all. I'll give a list of resources
Gotta
that
read her book.
anyone
Make sure you
listening
read her book.
and like I said, it's information that's out there too, but I like to just kind of go over it. So post-birth warning signs goes over set of symptoms that you need to be aware of as a new mom. Is your blood pressure getting high? And so that may be like changes in vision, like your vision is blurry. You have horrible headaches. So not like a normal headache, but like these really excruciating, painful headaches. Maybe you're soaking up a sanitary pad in large amounts. So that would be you're soaking up a pad greater than every hour. If that's happening,
It's a
that's
medical
something that should
emergency.
be
Yeah.
discussed with your healthcare provider right away, or maybe you need to call 911. So there are certain things that you need to be aware of that could be dangerous to you. And because you're a little sleepy, maybe sleep deprived, or you just may not know what to expect, these are things that are kind of posing a issue for moms. And that's one of the reasons we do have Black Maternal Health Week this week, and these types of initiatives, because Black women are dying at high rates, 3 to 4 times their white counterparts, right? So these are the things that we need to know. And it has nothing to do with sometimes your socioeconomic background. You've seen people in the headlines, Serena Williams, Beyonce, these people, we're not immune, okay? Even when you have money, you can still fall prey to these same things. So just know your body. You owe that to yourself. To pick up a book, get these reputable resources and look into those things before you have your baby. And you can do it in bite sizes, right? So like, I know there's a lot of books and resources and you're like, you don't have time to do all that. You don't have time for a class. But because of COVID, there are so many things that you can kind of do on a stop and pause thing. I made sure that my book was a shorter read intentionally because I know you don't have time to just sit and read a 300, 400 page book. You want to get straight to the point. Online classes now, you can get some of those on demand. So you can watch it in modules, you can stop it, you can do it on the way to work. Maybe you can just listen to it. So there are different ways that you can consume information right now based on how you learn and your partner or your support system learn best.
So awesome. So true. So much wealth of information. Definitely, I don't want to go too much into the book because I want people to read the book. So I'll be posting all of the information from websites, and definitely you can click on those links and check it out. And for Mercedes, your book is going to be launching on the 30th, and you can actually pre-order it now on Amazon. So that link will be in the
Yes.
comments as well. So definitely check it out, pre-order, reasonable price, and it is #1 bestseller. It was #1. And if you look at what spot she was at compared to some other reputable books that was on there, you
Yeah,
will
some of our
definitely want to get
nursing
the book. And
textbooks.
I had the pleasure to actually pre-read it. So as someone who read it, it's an awesome read. It's so easy, so simple, straight to the point. Chapters are great. You don't have to start thinking too hard about it. So highly recommend it. So Mercedes, thank you so much for
Thank you.
graciously being here, because I know you're busy and you took your time to step out today to be on my podcast. So
Thank
yeah.
you so much. It's such a pleasure.
Yes, yes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Audie.
everyone for listening. Definitely like and share and comment. Would love your feedback. So talk to everyone soon. Have a good one, everyone.
Good night.